Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council for Monday, June 5th, 2017 to order. We will begin with the singing of the national anthem, which will be led by Councillor Papp. I would ask all who are able to rise.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Councillor Papp. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start. It's with the approval of the agenda. It's been moved by Councillor Rybyak, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that the agenda for the June 5th, 2017 regular meeting of council be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Now that the agenda has been adopted, we ask if there are any conflicts of interest, any pecuniary interest that members of council need to declare. Do members have any conflicts?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 9.3.2, I'm affiliated with a company that owns property in the general area, and we may be dealing with similar issues.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can that be so noted? Are there any other conflicts that members of council have? Can that be so noted? Now we move to presentations. We have several presentations this evening. I'm going to call on the fire chief to begin. Chief?
Station 3 guys up front here. Station 3. Just poke around. I know you guys are out of your territory, but it's okay.
Yeah, but every now and
It's okay. Mr. Mayor, council, staff, friends, the members of the Phelps family, we're gathered here tonight to pay tribute. Retired and past Fire Chief Jim Phelps. I knew Jim for many years. He was a friend, a brother, a mentor, and I think this is well worth the honor. So I'll turn it over to the mayor and go from there.
Thank you very much. I just want to add and build on what the chief has said. Chief Phelps was such a strong member of the fire service in our community. As you know, he served as our chief in 1995 to 1999 and retired. But he continued his active service by becoming the district chief for the new Short Hills Fire Service, now called Station 3 and still Short Hills. And that was that temporary location. And he was a strong advocate for a more permanent facility to service an extremely important part of our community. I know some members of council were at a function where District Chief Phelps let us know in no uncertain terms that we needed to do something. We had just completed Station 2, And Chief Phelps was saying, now it's time for Station 3. And we took that to heart and worked together with members of the service in order to achieve that great facility. And we do hope that it's a great facility. We appreciate the dedication that Chief Phelps gave to the community. And even when we needed another fire chief in 2010, he stepped up and he offered to do that, both being the chief and the district chief. Now, he wasn't a chief that just sort of doing an interim and doing paperwork. He was very, very involved and ensuring that all of the things that we needed to do that maybe needed to be caught up on a little bit were caught up. So that when the baton was passed to Chief Limburner, it was in very good shape. He really turned the service around. And he worked together with all members, not only Station 3, but all members of the service in order to do that. And we greatly, Council and I greatly appreciate that. He was always dedicated to the service and always dedicated to the town, and is a strong advocate for a new station. When this was presented to us by Chief Bob, Council enthusiastically embraced it. So without further ado, perhaps members of the service could unveil. So that the new hall will be called Chief Jim Phelps, Pelham Fire Station 3.
I'm here with our family, my brother and sister. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. We'd like to thank Chief Limburner. First, he supported us with the passing of our father and bringing this motion forward, and Mayor and Council for passing it. It's quite an honor. Dad spent the majority of his retirement years working for the town of Pelham, but he did it willingly, and he loved every minute of it.
Absolutely.
He enjoyed buying trucks and fixing halls. That was his thing. But we really have to thank the fire service from Pelham for supporting us on the memorial we had for my father. It was very touching. The guys from Station 3, on the end of his driveway when we brought Dad home for his last ride in a fire truck, with their salute, just got us right here. It was, we can't thank you enough. It will never be forgotten. And to honor our father this way, for generations, these young kids here, all his grandkids, to be able to see that is quite an honor. And we would like to thank every one of you for doing that for us. It will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Killing me. Great stuff. Thanks again, guys.
Doesn't happen too often.
He's got as many grandkids as you. This is an artist rendition, of course, of what it will look like. We're looking for the appropriate time in order to do this publicly and display the name. It's just a matter of getting the letters changed and doing it appropriately. So that, working with the chief, that will occur shortly, and working with the members of the service.
Strawberry Festival, but we're not 100% sure if we're gonna get it done in time, so I didn't, but that's our goal, is to Strawberry Festival.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
appreciate it. Do you want the family to take that? Or
Yeah, we can do that.
Jeff,
Jeff,
did you want to
You wanna take this?
Sure.
I had a small one I gave to the homeless person.
Great.
or maybe I put it up at the hall?
You wanna go up in the hall? Do we have 2 minutes to do a group shot outside? Sure.
Went out and took a look. They look after themselves. Thank you.
Special.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Council, they're going to do a photo outside. Can we take a brief recess to do that?
Absolutely.
Council, want to come to be in the photo?
Sure.
There's should be the family.
Go.
Pass me a motion. Right there.
Let's go. Motion to adjourn.
We're doing one motion done. Motion to adjourn. Second.
Are you second? Write it down, Nance.
Any discussion?
None.
Nancy,
Get it
hey,
going.
they voted.
Blanket motion?
Be it resolved that all matters before council tonight have been accepted and resolved.
Accepted and resolved.
Tomorrow will be a sunny day.
The rain.
Have a special meeting. Different from the 6 board meeting we had. Yeah.
Swat boy.
We adjourned it when you're outside. See ya. That'd be hilarious.
That would be funny.
Oh, he'd be so angry.
I'll be going out the rest of the.
Oh, he wouldn't know what to do. He'd have a meltdown.
Rest of the servicemen
Yeah.
medals.
Yeah. Does not compute.
Marvin's ready to go do it. Marvin's ready.
I'll be the first one out.
I'll race you.
I'll beat all you guys.
That's funny.
And you'll see.
She's very good too.
No, he'd follow you. I know he'd follow you right out the. But wait, come back. Where's everybody going?
When do we get, when did we get, or did we have while I was away, the oversight committee update?
Next week. Is there anything you want in particular? And I wrote back, you know, where are we budget-wise, time-wise, how many jobs, local jobs is it created is what I asked. Yeah. Gonna include that in there, but if you want to add something else, you know, send it in. Because he's got 2 weeks to work on it.
Yeah, I'm coming. You ready?
Mr. Mayor, fireworks presentation has to come next meeting.
Funny.
Okay, that's fine.
I think, what we read so far seems to suggest that we're on time with the budget. I remember when we were doing downtown Pond Hill, that's what we were getting from Walsh every single meeting. Tending toward.
Tired, current, past.
Tending.
Yes, you old guys, get up here.
He's got draft
Never
plan
quite knew what the hell
approval. That
that
was our
was.
whole argument in negating the need for these environmental things. Because you said
Good evening,
the draft
everybody.
plan-
To further pay tribute to service in the, for the fire service, each year we recognize service by firefighters and officers in 5-year increments. When you get to the 20-year stage, you meet a medal portion. And this year, we have 6 recipients for long service medals. We talk about Jim just passing, but Jim put a lot of years in the fire service, and a lot of these guys in this room spent a lot of years with Jim, even the retired guys and the current guys. I have retired Owen Simmons at DC and Leo Rouse, because these 2 guys spent more time with the fire service than I have, so if they're fitting for them to be up front here. So you get on with this, not to delay any further, our first recipient for 25-year service is Ben Gutenberg. Second recipient, 25-year service, Larry Pelt. Larry, welcome, sir. Leo. Next recipient for 25-year service, Larry Pelt. Oh, sorry, not Larry Pelt.
That's 50 years.
Sorry, Ronnie Gilbert. Sorry. Should put my glasses on. The fourth person for 25 years, Jim Waldeck, wasn't able to attend tonight. Unfortunately, he's attending a funeral of his best friend, so he wasn't able to attend. So, moving on to the next one. This is a huge milestone. Not too many people reach this mark. 35 years service. Terry Beckett. Next recipient for 35 years service and also retiring this year from the Pelham Fire Service, Owen Simmons.
Congratulations.
Are you gonna come back over?
And just one for the thing for Owen's retirement, we have this ceremonial axe to present to him on his retirement.
Thank you very much. It is amazing, the service that members of our community give. They're there, you're there when we needed you, when the phone rang, when the pager went off, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, whatever you were doing. Remember Emmy telling me a story, he's about to eat a sandwich, Leo, and he put it down and ran. But always there to serve. Training, it was my chimney fire, yeah. Training, constantly training, always being prepared. That's the service that you've given and the generosity and the sacrifice you've made. And on behalf of council, I want to say thank you very much to each of you, those recipients this evening, and also those other members of the fire service that are here to commemorate with us. Thank you very much. The community appreciates it. Thank you. And retired DC Owen
Going with
wants to
that
say
is,
something.
we can't do it without the support of everybody else. Like, you need the full support of your wife, so thank you very much. My daughters and my grandkids, you give up a lot of time that you don't get to see them going to stuff, so thank you so much. People who taught me, like Ken, Leo, Hans, who's no longer with us, and it's just wonderful. So thanks again, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Owen. Thank you. Do we have the recipients? Perhaps they want to do a photo. I don't know if you want to do it outside or in here. You go outside? We'll let you guys go outside. We'll let you go outside and we'll carry on with our meeting. But thank you on your. Yes, yeah. Soon. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Take care. Thanks, Peter.
Peter with the axe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially standing next to the mayor.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here as well, and we'll continue with the meeting. I think we do this all the time to Trevor Ferguson. He's our auditor. We always have these amazing presentations, and then he comes and talks to us about our audit.
Numbers.
And numbers. So, but perhaps he can work in some of those amazing numbers of service, 35 years, 25 years of service from members of our community. It's absolutely outstanding. Before we begin, okay, thank you, Vicki. You're going to get that door. So, Mr. Ferguson, thank you very much for joining us this evening and running through our audit. And they're signaling they need some help. The folks are here for yours. Yeah. Thank you.
I can start talking and going through just a few things before we get the PowerPoint or the document up there. So I'm not sure what you were trying to say about my presentation. It is exciting.
It is exciting. I'm not trying to say anything, but we...
When I walked in the door and the room was full, I thought, wow, they're here. That's okay. So I will provide some highlights on this document. This is our year-end results document. I recognize that it's not up on the screen. I guess you don't have it in front of you. Needless to say, a lot of the things that are in this document.
We do, I believe, have it on our
Have it on
iPads.
our
Yep.
Yeah, we got
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
We got it.
Thank you.
So I'll hit the highlights on this document. A lot of the things that are in here are required to be here in accordance with Canadian audit standards. So some of the things you may wonder, why on earth are they in here when we talk about going concern? Clearly the town is going to continue to exist, so we're not too worried about that, but it's something that we as auditors are required to communicate to you. So if you were to flip a few pages in to look at page 1, the titles are Audit Explained. And I'll start there and work my way on a few things. So in terms of our audit scope, in terms of engagement, we performed our audit exactly in accordance with the audit plan that we presented to council back in the fall. So there were no changes. I guess it was January 4th, sorry, but there were no changes to that plan whatsoever. I'll skip over the audit risks. I'm going to speak to that in just a minute. And with respect to materiality, we did perform our audit with the concept of materiality in mind. We based it on expenses, as we always do, and we have a reporting threshold to this committee, which is 5% of our materiality, so a very low number. And if we identified anything above that threshold, we would be reporting it to you today as part of this presentation. But if you flip to the next page, on the top right-hand corner, there's a little box called Uncorrected Misstatements, and as you can see, there are none, which is always a good thing. So what that means is that we did not identify any misstatements above that threshold, and we have nothing to report to you today in that regard. There are also no uncorrected disclosure deficiencies. So what that means is that, in our opinion, your financial statements disclose everything they're required to in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. In terms of status and outstanding matters, there are a few things noted there. Those are merely noted because the financial statements have not been approved by council. As soon as that happens, we can take care of those 3 items. We have everything from management that we need. Absolutely. Better you than me. If you flip the page again in terms of fraud, risk, and independence, I won't go into any detail on those 2 points. You know, we had a bit of a discussion as part of the audit plan presentation on some of the things that we do in and around those areas. We did everything that we said we would do, and we did not identify anything unusual whatsoever. So we're in good shape. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Now, should this be showing on the screen? Or?
I'll get
oh, okay. Sorry, I'm being picky here. My apologies. In terms of significant accounting practices, judgments, and estimates, there are a few estimates that go into the preparation of your financial statements. Some things like accrued liabilities, employee future benefits liability, some of the estimates that go into that. Useful life of tangible capital assets, that's often not considered because you're factoring in the amortization that you're going to have on an annual basis over the life of the asset. Things like that are some of the bigger estimates that go into the preparation of your financial statements. And as you can see, in conclusion, we intend on issuing an unmodified report once the statements are approved and the outstanding items are taken care of. The next few pages go through our audit risks. I don't intend to go through those. What we've done here is taken the first two columns directly out of our audit plan, and we've added the column down the right-hand side being our audit results. And as you can see, for each of those items, we've identified them as being, we obtained all the audit evidence that we needed and concluded that there were no material misstatements, which is always a good thing from your auditor. The only other thing that I'll point out as part of this presentation is Appendix 1, and that is our communication requirements to the committee. Over the course of 2 pages here, there are 18 items listed. I'm sure I've done something wrong. It's natural. I do it all the time. So there are 18 items listed down the left-hand side, and those are our communication requirements to the committee. And on the right-hand side, what we've done is just add a column to tell you where we've told you about those things. Most of them are either a part of our engagement letter, our audit plan, or elsewhere in this document. And a number of things are identified as being none or none noted, which again is always good from your auditor. So I think I'll stop there. I'm not sure there's a need to go through the rest of the report, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson. Apologies to the members of the public for the projector not working. We're experiencing some technical difficulties, but council did have this in advance, and it was published on our website. So I'll now open it up for members of council if they have any questions of Mr. Ferguson, our independent auditor. Councilor Rubiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, thank you for the presentation. There was some discussion over the past few months with regard to what is referred to as an auditor's letter. I don't think that we see one here. Can you just clarify what it is and why we would have one or why we would not have one?
Certainly. In audit speak, we would call that a management letter. So if we identified any significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, areas for significant improvement in internal controls that we identified throughout the audit, we'd be writing a management letter with a comment and an observation to the town, and we'd be asking for a management representation, essentially to say, what is the town going to do about it, so to speak. We did not identify anything of that nature, and that's why there's no management letter presented to you. I did prepare a management letter for the purpose of the expert panel, which simply said that there hasn't been a management letter for the past few years, and that continues to be the case for this year.
Thank you. That's great news.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. I don't think that it's generally understood that no report from an auditor is actually a good report from an auditor.
Yes.
No news is good news, right?
That's right.
Okay, good. Thank you. Others? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I have 2 questions. One is pertaining to the annual surplus. It seems the town did very well this year in that we have an annual surplus of in excess of $6 million. Could you explain that, how we arrive at that number?
Certainly. I might defer to management on a piece of that. A lot of it is non-cash. It's related to assets that were contributed to the town as part of the new developments.
Would you like to, Ms.
Through
Quinn?
Mr. Mayor, good evening,
Do you mind-
everyone. So what we have here with the 6...
Before you start, let's have our CAO introduce you. We forgot to do that with all the activity at the start of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to welcome Teresa Quinlan here with us this evening. Teresa is serving in the role of acting treasurer and until such time as a permanent replacement is found. So we're thrilled to have Teresa on board. Teresa comes to us from Niagara College, where she has extensive background in accounting, but also in large project management. She oversaw $90 million in capital expansion at Niagara College. If you go back to the start of her career, I believe it was in the private sector with experience with KPMG doing municipal audits. So all the way through her career has been either directly or indirectly related to local government type of operations. Highly qualified. We're thrilled to have her on board, and welcome to your first council meeting.
Thank you. And your first question. Thank you, Ms. Quinn.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So the surplus is composed of 3 different parts. So as Trevor mentioned, one part is the contributed tangible capital assets, so that's almost $4.9 million, which comes from the land. The other part is the gas tax, almost $873,000 for the gas tax. This is 2 years of gas tax coming into revenue. And the next part is the planning fees, about $662,000 were the planning fees, just due to the increase in activities.
Thank you. Counselor? I think you were trying to make a point with the question.
Yeah, that's it. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. A second part of the question is sort of related to it is, and it ties into a balance sheet type entry, and that's speaking about net debt. And that term gets bantered around, and I wondered if you might explain net debt versus actual debt, and in terms that the public could understand.
Mr. Ferguson?
Absolutely. So net debt is a term that's comes straight from public sector accounting standards. What it is the difference on your statement of financial position. It's the difference between the financial assets of the town and its liabilities. So it's just one line, financial assets minus all your liabilities equals net debt. The distinguishing factor in public sector accounting standards differentiate between financial assets and non-financial assets. So your tangible capital assets on your balance sheet at December 31st, 2016 are $104 million. So that's not included in your net debt position. It's just financial assets minus all your liabilities. So even though you've got liabilities related to those capital assets, it doesn't get reflected in that calculation. The other piece of your question, I think you were just talking about debt, and that's the liability, the debt that the town owes its lenders. So that's the difference.
Okay, thank you. Counselor?
No, thank you. That brings a lot of clarity.
Thank you. I think just to the first point, we had that resolution that's still out there at the region regarding the deficit, and saying, adding up 3 years of the town's deficit on that line, and saying that it added up to $1 million. Well, it's clear that deficit, as we said, was a non-cash deficit. Now we have a non-cash surplus of more than $6 million. So it's important to understand the financial statements, I think, is the point the councillor is going to make. Right. When one's reading them, and instead of just pulling out numbers. Yep. As we saw in that motion.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for our auditor? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson. We appreciate it. And I do have a motion here. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved that council receive and approve the 2016 financial statements and the auditor's report dated June 5th, 2017, prepared by the firm Deloitte LLP. Questions or comments? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much for presenting this to us, and I want to thank you very much as well for being present at our Evening of the Experts and being able to answer questions there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe she's still in the room. Charlotte Tunakaitis is the Deputy Treasurer. I want to thank her very much for all of her work on this. She's kind of carried the audit and continues to carry the audit for us. So thank you very much on behalf of council for that. Thank you. Next, we move to another presentation. Martin Van Zom is here, and he is going to give us an update on the Community Center fundraising initiative. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me back. Before I get started, I wanted to share with you an event that occurred on May 11th here in town, whereby we actually celebrated reaching our $1 million goal. And we have a short video prepared for all of you, so hopefully we can get into that. Apparently I just click at this point and
Little arrow
will
that
this work?
shows play.
Of course, if I can get to the start of it, that would be good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I am almost there. Perfect.
So here we are at Penn Lakes in beautiful Pelham, honoring and thanking our very generous donors. They've donated more than $1 million. It will be the place where those young and old will come to gather to celebrate Pelham's significant events, significant teams, and to honor our champions.
People in Pelham are very committed to their local cause. We've had so many positive reactions, and tonight is actually an example of how Pelham residents and businesses and community leaders have stepped up.
Well, the community center is going to be for families, for a community that's going as fast as it is. We need a place for all.
This is a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime project for Pelham. I can't wait to see the impact this has on the residents of Pelham and the businesses and just the overall community spirit, because it's just such a positive and great thing to be a part of.
Pelham Minor Hockey would like to be a leader, and we want to support everybody else in the community to support this project to ensure that it's a success and it's part of the infrastructure of our community for years to come.
So starting about 20 years ago, our service club was made aware that a community opportunity for youth and young families was important in Pelham. And so in the late 90s, we started to accumulate some funding to work towards a project in the future. And we felt strongly that we needed to step up and do something special. So believing in Pelham as we do and observing our motto of serving the community's greatest needs, we decided to get behind this in a very positive way.
We decided to support the project primarily as a payback for all the support that took place 40 years ago to build the current facility, and that allowed our kids to mature and grow up as good citizens, and so we felt we had to do a payback and a pay forward so we can provide a facility for the community of the future.
We believe as a company to always give back in the communities that we develop and build in. So this was an opportunity for us to step up in a significant way and show our leadership in the community in hopes to set an example for others.
As a business person or as a resident of Pelham, I'd be hard pressed to understand why people wouldn't want to be involved, because everyone is going to benefit from this. Whether you're old or young or have kids or don't have kids or like hockey or don't like hockey, it doesn't matter, because it's going to be an important community gathering spot.
In 1988, we brought the first Tim Hortons in Fawn Hill. And it's for the kids. And the kids need the support, and we're giving the kids support.
I think it's a promise of tomorrow. I think these children need an opportunity. We're always thinking of ways of keeping our young people active and productive, and I think it's only fair that we give them a fighting chance.
I'd like to see other businesses step up too, and if they're fortunate enough to have a successful business in Pelham, then they'll help the community as much as they can.
This is going to be the hub for our community, and thanks a million, Pelham, for getting here. We have a little bit more to go, but the support that's in that room today is just outstanding and showcases the generosity of volunteers and donors that got us here so far.
So, there you have it, if you will. This is obviously, when we kicked off this project, a year ago, after council approved in April of last year the project, and we then in December celebrated the $400,000 milestone. As I stand before you today, we've now raised $1 million, and that's really in 12 months. For a community this size, that is quite phenomenal. I think I shared with some of you that when we were doing a similar project in St. Catharines a few years back, it took us a year to get to that $1 million as well, and that's obviously a much larger community. I think one of the items that the public asks me, and I think sometimes members of council and members of staff, is why are we doing not a, besides the capital campaign, why aren't we doing other things yet? And I think the reason why this has been structured is if we do the proper job on the capital campaign, if we get all the support that we have earmarked for naming properties within the building, we would be able to satisfy council's budget number, which is $3 million. The community campaign, which is part of this campaign, will follow the capital campaign, and that's where donors in the community, families, businesses, can step up and be part of this campaign, still be recognized within the facility on our donor wall, but not are going to get not a naming opportunity attached to that. So there definitely will be another phase as part of this campaign that will see everybody else to be involved. And lastly, the final phase of the campaign will be the seats in the Accipiter Arena. There's 1,000 seats in the Accipiter Arena, which are earmarked to be named as well, separately. And those type of naming opportunities will come at a much, much smaller and more affordable, perhaps, level, you know, for community members to participate. So that is the three phases that we're working on. But as I reminded Council in my last presentation, we're still working on the capital phase of it. That's the most important one, because once we get that behind us, then we'll you know, turn it into community and into the seed campaign. So that's my update tonight for you. If there's any questions, I would gladly like to take them at this point.
Thank you very much. We certainly appreciate your update and appreciate the work, and the video displays the wonderful generosity that occurred that evening and the honoring of those amazing gifts to the community, including one of our colleagues around the table. So kudos to Gary and Mal Kersey for their significant gift to the campaign. Do members of council have any questions for Mr. Van Zon? Councillor Papp.
Well, this is wonderful news. I have to ask this question because it's like the elephant in the room, if I may say that. So what you're saying, that if someone steps forward and gives a substantial gift, that would not be part of a naming opportunity, be just a gift to the center itself?
We have received already commitments whereby donors have stepped up that do not want to be naming any spaces. Like we have a number of gifts that will be recognized once the community portion of the campaign kicks off. That's when we will make public those particular individuals and or companies that are part of that. But it is an individual choice. As Councillor Papp knows, you know, it depends on, I think, people's convictions, their support for the project, particularly when it comes to, we had in some campaigns, we have people that give an anonymous gift even, you know, and they will be actually recognized with the name anonymous on a donor wall. So it really depends on the donor and the individual donors, you know, how they would like to be recognized.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I needed to know.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councillor. Other members of council? Councillor Junkin.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess it'll depend on the success of the first two before you decide a total for the seat campaign as per cost per seat.
Yeah, we want to make it as affordable as possible, obviously, and I think I have shared with council that you know, I was initially, when we did our overall budget, we were thinking in the $200, $250 range, perhaps over multiple years, that people could pledge. It's not dissimilar to what we used in St. Catharines for the Performing Arts Center, whereby they have a large number of subscribers that came over from Brock when Brock closed down its performing season, and all these subscribers moved into the PAC. And these folks got first dibs because some of these people had named their seats at the Brock Performing Arts Centers to get their names on the seats in Partridge Hall. So I'm envisioning something like that, but I definitely hope that we have met our goal at that point and we can make it as affordable as possible so that as many people from the community can show their support for this particular project.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Those that are looking for more information,
rpcc.ca, and through you, Mr. Mayor, and through me personally, my name is kind of plastered on all the, you know, the documents that are out there in the community. And yeah, I'd gladly meet with anybody and anyone who has an interest in the project to explain more. I mean, currently we have a number of asks out there that are being talked about amongst organizations that are considering, so the work continues.
That's great. Thank you very much for your update. I don't think there's any further questions. We appreciate your work, Mr. Van Zaan, and also we appreciate the generosity of our significant donors thus far to the campaign. Thanks a million. Thank you.
Nancy, for once again facilitating my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. We do have a, next on our agenda is, actually, we have Councillor Durley here. I'm sorry, Councillor Beatty is here and wants to give us an update. And then I know Councillor Durley has a motion because there's some members of the public that are here, and we will consider perhaps reordering the agenda.
Yep.
So, Councillor Beatty, without further ado, if you'd like to, we didn't know at the time when the agenda was together that you'd have a report. So thank you very much for coming this evening.
Well, there's a story to it, Mr. Mayor, and members of council and staff. It's sort of the dog ate my homework story. I have a situation with my computer that, for whatever reason, if I get an email and there's a report, which I do from the region about the overall reports, the summaries, it's printing fine. But if I go to create one, somehow it's merging with a cookbook. And I get things about waffles and then something about crepes and so on mixed with it, and then all of a sudden the words explode all over. So, and I've been away for the last week, so I couldn't get my computer in.
Sounds like a food virus.
Communicate. Well, better that than what some other alternatives could be in recent times, I'm sure. But to be quite honest, the last couple of meetings have been somewhat disconcerting to me. I told you at the last time I reported that we spent almost 3/4 of an hour just talking and debating on the agenda, which I think is really problematic about an organization that can't come to even agree what they want to talk about. And this last one, I would say probably 80% of the time was talking about the Integrity Commissioner and certain members with regard to complaints and so on. So it's been very, not been very highly productive. But there are two things I wanted to mention because of the circumstances that are current. First of all, we've had a torrential amount of rain, as you know, and unfortunately a large volume of untreated sewage going into our waterways. And it's a case where I want the community to come to an understanding that not all developments historically had separation between the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer. And so when they're connected, and serving both, and you get a torrential rainstorm, and some people unfortunately also hook up their eave straws to that system, okay, it basically overloads the capability. There is money put aside, and I just want to mention that in this last round of meetings, we did put aside $4 million for ongoing partnerships with local communities to try and create stormwater facilities that basically will take care of the excess that's there. But it's an ongoing problem, and it's one with the kind of climate change that we've had recently is one that we need to continue working at, but it's a multi-million-dollar project every year to try and finally get to the point of separation. A lot of people don't understand, for example, like in East Font Hill, we've got 2 large stormwater retention ponds. That wasn't true in the 50s and 40s and 30s, et cetera. So it's a problem that all communities have to deal with. The second thing I want to mention, it's a good news story, again, that we did have a report recently from representatives from Metrolinx. And partly as a result of that, we established basically a Go implementation office with both the director and a project coordinator in terms of moving that project forward. There is some uncertainty as to whether or not the funds will be there and whether it will be the same government, et cetera, down the line. But we've had ongoing assurances from the government as well as Metrolinx that yes, the funding is there in place. It's a staged process where quite clearly Stony Creek is first on the list, and they'll work their way out each year in terms of the development all the way to Niagara Falls in 2023. That's been aided and assisted by an announcement by the Prime Minister of Canada directing some funds towards reestablishment, so that's hopefully going to spur up the process a little bit. There was conversation about trying to see if we get some extra service for the Canada Games, and at least they've taken note of that in terms of it, even if it was the regular summer service and they augmented the number of trips for that particular summer games time period, it would be good. So I want to bring those two things verbally to you. When I do get the virus out of my computer, we'll do a summary after the fact, but it's pretty much a non-high issue sort of a session that we had in the last meeting. The meeting coming up, though, fairly significant. We're working towards a code of conduct, which is obviously, from you tell from the newspaper, quite important and perhaps long overdue in terms of getting that tightened up. So that's my report, and I'm sorry about the fact that the virus got me.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Beatty. I just want to add to something that Councillor Beatty talked about, and really he was reporting. You were reporting on the last meeting, not the meeting that's coming up on Thursday, but something that important is coming up at Regional Council on Thursday in terms of the wastewater issue. The wastewater master plan and the water master plan is coming to the region, and I did ask the question about this idea of overflows, because I said this master plan talks about mitigation of storm overflows, but not elimination. And unfortunately, the plan is not calling for an elimination of the storm sewer overflows in the next 25 years. So I think it's an important point that I think we really should think about. Is there a way that we can eliminate them altogether within 25 years and have that goal? So we did talk about it at committee, and it will come up again, I'm sure, at Regional Council. It's especially the fact that climate is changing, and it was a billion liters of untreated but diluted sewage that was overflowed from the plants. It's an important issue, and if that has to happen, for the next 25 years and not going to be solved, that's a real problem that I think we should deal with. So I want to let colleagues know that it will probably continue to be a discussion at Regional Council on how we work toward stopping that from happening.
Right. And I forgot to mention, Mr. Mayor, one of my reasons for being away this past week, I was in Toronto. The Ministry of its Lands and Mines and Quarries, or whatever it's called. I don't quite know why it goes there, but there was an appeal by Hamilton with regard to the levy from MPCA. And in my observation for a number of years, Niagara was overburdened with the taxes. The fantastic growth that you've seen in Binbrook wasn't being recognized. Hamilton has appealed that, and we think that the hearing finished last week. We think we should get a result sometime by September or so. And I would think and I would hope that would be in our favor, because the formula we're using is the provincial formula in terms of assessment base. And what signaled it was the new CEO then, Carmen D'Angelo, basically couldn't find any agreement to do it other than what the province said, and which was by the assessment rate. And it was the Binbrook's mushroom explosion that it's had in terms of its development wasn't being recognized properly.
Yeah. So
it
it's
should be good news,
the
I think,
apportionment between the municipalities for the MPCA.
Yep.
Thank you. Questions for Councillor Beatty? Councillor Junkin?
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor. I believe you stated the region would be spending $4 million a year on the untreated sewage problem. Now, is that to increase the capacity of the sewage plants to handle, or would that $4 million go into dividing stormwater from sewage, from the sewage lines?
First of all, that's the region share, and it's cost sharing with the local municipalities. And in some cases, what's happened in Niagara Falls, for example, they've gone into investment in higher speed, higher capacity treatment, and in other places, it's larger storage capacity to handle the flow. But as mentioned by the mayor, the concern is if this year is an example of what we might be facing down the line, while we built capacity, reserve capacity, it may not yet be enough if this kind of weather is what we're facing in the future.
Some of the, just to add to that, some of the works are for the separation, because as Councillor Beatty indicated, many of the older sewers are combined between sanitary and storm. They all come into one, and that's where the problems come in. In some cases, I think Pelham had an application in for doing some studying. There's some studies that have to be done before works can take place. Are the eaves trough leads or the sump pumps in a certain area in the municipality going into the sanitary sewer. In other cases, as Councillor Beatty said, it's a collection, and so they actually build large. You think about these ponds that we have for stormwater. These are diluted sewer water, big tanks to hold it until that capacity is then available for it to be treated. So it's sort of a surge capacity. There's other features as well, but the council has said that the idea is to try to fund the separation as much as possible. So stop the problem as opposed to just mitigate the problem. But we still have a ways to go.
Surge capacity tanks, for example, behind the old Hotel and Hospital, that's an example of where they put the surge capacity there.
Right.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Councillor Beatty? Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Beatty, you mentioned earlier that the regional council has been sort of spinning their tires because of discussions that really didn't move forward. This council is party to one of the integrity commissioners' results, and that was never resolved at a meeting because it was reported that one member of council was going to make some kind of a rebuttal this coming meeting.
Yep.
Since then, this particular council member has chosen to take a leave of absence. Is there going to be a resolution to that? This is, something that needs to be dealt with. There's 3 issues about this one particular person, and there's no idea of when it's going to be heard. The regional chair has said nothing about timing or any kind of actions that are coming forward. I think we need to know something about this to get on. The resolve has to be there. We're totally involved. Other people are involved. There's 3 very important issues from the integrity commissioner. When are we going to know what's going on, and how is it going to be dealt with, and what is going to be done?
That's a question that all councillors are going to have for the chair in our next meeting in terms of what direction we proceed. We've not been told the length or the nature of the leave that's there. We all obviously know the event that precipitated it, but it's a question that needs to be resolved. It would have been possible, at least the written portion would have been possible, even on a leave of absence, but I don't think that's going to be forthcoming. So we'll obviously be asking that of the chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, yes, it has to be asked and asked again until there is an answer, because it's very important to resolve these issues. You're still going to be spinning your tires unless you get a resolve of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't want to name the author, but the mayor would be aware probably of a person who writes articles, supposedly newspaper-like, and appears on Facebook. Something appeared today, very, very critical.
I didn't see it, so.
We'll talk offline.
Okay, thank you. It is a concern, I think, across the community, because they want us to deal with important issues like how do we mitigate climate change, whether it comes to wastewater, or how do we plan our communities moving forward. And as Councillor Durley, you've indicated that we have been spinning our wheels and concentrating on this too much. So hopefully we can get it resolved quickly, and move on to the other important issues that face Niagara.
Yeah, just to be clear, the region's tires are spinning, ours are pretty well solid on the pavement.
Yeah, we're moving along. Thank you very much, Councillor. I appreciate that. Anything further? Thank you very much, Councillor Beatty. I do have a motion moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Ribbiak, that the verbal report provided by Regional Councillor Beatty be received. And I think you said you're going to give us a written report when your computer's working again. So
yes,
we look forward to that. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Councillor Beatty. Councillor Durley, you have a motion here. We have a couple of members of the public that are here that are potentially want to be involved in, very generously involved in something. So it's been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Ribbiak, that the agenda for the June 5th, 2017 meeting of council be amended to consider item 11.2.4, which is the Come Alive Outside, right now, immediately following delegations and presentations. And the Christophers are here. So can we, I'll call the question on moving that agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. So we'll now, those that are watching at home with their agendas, we're now going to deal with 11.2.4. And the clerk's just going to get that resolution. This is dealing with, maybe I'll call on the director to make some brief comments about this. Ms. Van Ravensway.
Really, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Yes, we were contacted, actually, Barb Christopher contacted the Summerfest committee last year and introduced staff and the committee to this particular event, Come Alive Outside, which is the Green Street Challenge. At that time, timing just didn't work out. So again, this year, Ms. Christopher contacted staff again and said, we really want to be involved in this. Can we get it going? So Come Alive Outside is the Green Street Challenge. What happens is Landscape Ontario encourages their members to participate in the challenge. They get sod companies involved, and in our case would be Young Sod Company, in donating sod. Also, other members such as landscape companies to lay the sod, and at the end of the day, once the sod is laid, we have a event, and it basically encourages the importance of outdoor unstructured play for children, to get the electronics out of their hands, and to have a one-day event. And in this case, we are recommending downtown Fenwick. It would be on August the 19th in the morning. In the morning, the sod company, Young Sod, would be cutting the sod and delivering it early morning. So far, DePort Landscape Company has offered to lay the sod, and we would proceed to have activities throughout the day, free activities throughout the day for the community. At the end of the day, another member of the Landscape Ontario, which hasn't been announced as yet, would come in and take up the sod and remove it. The Fenwick firefighters have agreed to assist in watering the sod and also cleaning up the streets as well. So it's a new event. It is an event with new corporate sponsors, and it's exciting to see different people and different businesses come forward and with a new type of event. So we're looking forward to possibly holding the event with Council's blessing.
Thank you very much, Ms. Van Ravensway, for outlining the potential event. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Ribiak. Be it resolved, the council authorize the following road closure, which is what would be required to make this event a success. Canberra Road, downtown Fenwick, as per the attached map in the report, on Saturday, August 19th, 2017, from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. And the council approve an upset limit of $1,000 to cover expenses related to the event. So Ms. Van Ravensway has gone through the purpose and the idea. Are there questions or comments from members of council regarding the motion before us? Councillor Junkin?
Yes, when I first read about this, it struck me that this event was more suitable to large inner cities, that maybe their parks are run down, kids have no place to play, and then I could see where this would be a very commendable thing. All of a sudden, you're going to close a road, you're going to lay sod, and these kids that basically don't have a park to play in, but all of a sudden, well, here we go, there you go, play your brains out for the day, whatever. And at first I didn't, and I don't know if I still think that Pelham is the place for it, but especially when we're going to sod Canberra Road, and 300 yards away is excellent parkland that is probably underutilized. But the more I got thinking about it, if certain members of the community want to make huge contributions, I mean, the sod is not a cheap thing to give out. And then and at the end of the day, the town is left in better or as good as shape as when it started. Then I say knock yourself out, and let's give it a try.
Thank you very much, Councillor. There was another councillor here that was it Councillor Papp and then Councillor Kersey. Councillor Papp.
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director. Explain to me where the sod is going to be placed. Maybe I missed it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
So on municipal property?
It will be placed correct.
It's a separate map that's there, but
There's
it's a separate page.
attached.
That's perhaps why you didn't see it, but
Okay. I
the
don't
director
have it.
will outline it.
Can you just
Director.
explain to me quickly where it would go?
Okay, so
Oh.
basically it would be
Okay.
in front of the library to the flagpole, around the flagpole,
Okay.
on the roadway.
Gotcha.
I just wanted to mention, this event has become an annual event in town of Woodstock, Picton, and it's grown every year. And it's something that is different, and I think that it gives people the opportunity to think about getting outside, unstructured play, which very rarely happens in that way. And one very important part of this sod is being donated, and generous donation, and literally donated. So at the end of the day, what we do is, if we do get approval, we will start to work now in finding someone in need of the sod. So whether there is a charitable organization that needs, sod in an area, a new build or so forth, they're welcome to the sod. So not only is it a donation for the day, for the event, but it's also a living donation.
Thank you. Councilor Pap?
Sure. So let me just very briefly comment. Thank you for showing the map. I definitely will wholeheartedly support this kind of initiative, because there's a number of other factors, not just getting youth out. This is part of community engagement. It's part of, in spite of some people in the world who think we shouldn't be greening, we should be. It is the generosity of the corporate culture is very important, because it shows to others that they're willing to give back. Plus, I can see the application throughout, I think all of us, not just me, throughout the whole community in other areas that potentially may not have that same opportunity to do something like this. So there's multiple benefits from this, and I would be wholeheartedly endorsing this, and trust that maybe when I was thinking, when we talked to a couple of our community members at the budget presentation who said, we'd like to help with tree planting, I could just see the whole area of this improving, and I commend the Christophers and Young Sod and all of the people involved for moving forward, and I hope that this will become an annual event throughout the municipality. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Pap stole my thunder, but that's okay. I'm used to that. Anyway,
I'll pay you back.
I see this again as a celebration of community. We're celebrating a very successful business in our community who are generously donating. We're celebrating the downtown Fenwick and the beautification that's been achieved there, again with the help of the Christophers. We're celebrating the new library, and as well as all the businesses that are engaged to the street there. And we're celebrating the ability to go outside and play in a very unique and catchy manner. It's great to say we have the parks, but they are sometimes taken for granted. This will draw attention to outside play in a very unique and inventive way. So I think it's an event that we need to get behind. I will most certainly be supporting the motion, and I'd like to see it become an annual event. I can't think of a better place to have it than Fenwick. I think it's the ideal spot, and it celebrates the business community that is in the downtown core of Fenwick, as well as in the rural areas. So thank you very much for your support for this.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Durley and then Ribiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps after rumble of thunder in this, because a lot of thunder has gone. It's an innovative idea. It's a fantastic idea. It's a great way to showcase the innovation that this town has and the power of community that it's going to create. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I look forward to watching and maybe participating in some of the events in the grass. Maybe get some grass stains so we can get the fresh tide to get them out or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Yeah. Councillor Ribiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the director, just a question. I understand this is meant to be a celebration of unstructured play, but I take it that there will be some programming, and there may be some, I don't know, it strikes me that hardball is probably not a great idea in glass-lined streets.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we also have the great opportunity to use our resources that we use at our summer camps. So we have many play items that will be there for the children to play, and we have come up with a couple of other unique ideas that would help the children have a great time.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this. I think this is a terrific idea. And I mean, Fenwick has proven in festivals and events that we've had in the past that Fenwick likes a party too. So I would expect that there would be a range of activities, and parents will find an opportunity to explore the fun of unstructured play as well. And so I will more than happily support this and express my appreciation as well for all of the values that underlie all of this thing. I think it's a tremendous testament to people in Pelham. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Just to build on what was said, and I'll try and be brief as well. I'm very, very supportive of this as well, and I hope that we can have activities for, I think as the director spoke about earlier, not only for children but for youth, and all ages as well, as Councillor Ribiak indicated. Some of the parents unplugging. That's important in busy lives, to do something different, to put away the cell phone, etc. Unless you're taking a picture, I guess. But to play and to think about things differently and build on those relationships, those within families, but also within communities, as I think Councillor Kersey talked about, and building those relationships. I think one of the great things about when we did, for instance, closing the street and having a celebration of the conclusion of the construction in Fenwick was that streets are for people, and not for cars necessarily. Cars drive them like crazy all the time, and they have a predominance. But to have streets for people, where people can gather and be very safe, and in that case it was celebrate the conclusion of the construction, but in this case just celebrate and get together with families. So I think it's absolutely wonderful as well. I do want to thank Young Sod Farms and Barb for bringing this idea forward. You're very generous in the community, as Councillor Kersey has stated, certainly around and others. The gas lamps in downtown Fenwick are a lasting legacy to your generosity, but also with the fire hall in Fenwick, Fire Station number 2, the support that you gave there, and as well to the skate park. So thank you very much for your ongoing generosity and really innovative ways to build our community and make our community better. So thank you. As well, we have other partners in this, the restaurants in the area coming together and hopefully opening up and embracing the idea, as I think is accentuated here in the report. Members of the fire service becoming involved. So this is a real community initiative. So thank you very much for the idea, for continuing to push it. And you've seen the great response that you received from council. And we look forward to staff working together with the community to turn this into a great event. Without further ado, I'm going to call the question. It has, Councillor Papp, you have something
Yes,
further? I
if I
apologize.
may,
Go ahead.
I would ask that once we have approved this resolution, this information also be circulated to all of the Pelham Community Service Clubs, make them fully aware of what we're doing, and so, because I see extensive opportunities for other people to step in and assist private sector. I can give a whole list of groups that would be very fascinated and would probably be willing to invest resources into it.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you very much. Great idea. Anyone else with other ideas to try and make the event even more special and better? Okay, I'm going to call the question in that direction. Councillor Papp is embedded in the motion.
Right.
I'll ask the clerk to include that. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for coming forward with the idea. I look forward to working together with you on this. Thank you. Now, there are some other people here with other issues, so we're going to get back to the regularly scheduled agenda. And so next we have approval of minutes. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Junkin. Be it resolved, the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. And they are the regular council minutes of May 15th, 2017. Are there any errors or omissions in those minutes? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Next, we have consent agenda items to be considered in block. I would suppose that we should lift item 932, because Councillor Kersey, that's the item that you had a
That's
conflict
correct.
of interest. So Council, can we lift item 932 and deal with that separately? Are there any other items that we should lift for separate consideration? Thank you. There being none, it has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the following consent agenda items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. Staff reports of a routine nature for information or action. 931 is the historical staffing complement and head count trends. And the motion, be it resolved, the council receive the town historical staffing complement and head count trends report for information. Action correspondence of routine nature, we have a few items. 2 proclamations. The first is from the National Drowning Prevention Week, and it's the motion, be it resolved, the council authorized Mayor Augustine to declare the week July 16th to the 22nd, 2017, to be National Drowning Prevention Week in the town of Pelham, and to focus on drowning prevention and the lives that may be saved this year. The second, be it resolved, the council authorize the mayor to declare the month of June 2017 Recreation and Parks Month in the town of Pelham to recognize the benefits and values of recreation and parks, appropriate given the discussion we had earlier. We also have a noise variance. Be it resolved, the council receive the correspondence from Jesse, how do you say that name? Lydiat, and the council permit the variance to the town of Pelham noise bylaw 3130 for the purpose of a private family backyard wedding at the property known municipally as 1179 Pelham Street on Sunday, July 2nd, 2017, for the purpose of music amplification, and that the applicant be required to ensure music is not amplified beyond the hour of 1 a.m. on Monday, July 3rd, 2017. Is that correct? Information correspondence items. We have one, it's a notice of environmental assessment. Be it resolved, the council received the correspondence from Upper Canada Consultants dated May 17th, 2017, regarding a class environmental assessment study for the Kunda Park Boulevard connection for information. And then we have committee minutes for information. Active Transportation Committee minutes of April 25th and Committee of Adjustment hearing minutes March 7th and April 4th. Questions or comments on any of those items? Councillor Durley and then Councillor Ribbiak. Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, item 951, the class environmental assessment study. The report says comment should be received by June 2nd, and here we are on June 5th. I don't understand. The timing is way off.
Ms. Weens, perhaps you can assist us?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I think comments are to be received by July 2nd. I think that was the date.
I think maybe it's a misprint.
Maybe it's a misprint. This is just the notice of commencement of the study, so they're very early on in the process with this. It's just beginning, and there will be further opportunities to have review and consultation on this, and it's also linked to the draft plan of subdivision for Kunda Park. We're expecting we will see a revised draft plan coming in shortly, and this is all coordinated as with part of that.
Okay, so June 2, as it appears, is a misprint. It should be July
Yes.
2.
Yes.
Okay, that
Yeah,
clears it up.
both the letter and the
Yeah, that
attached
clears it up.
item say June 2nd. So perhaps that can be. Ms. Weens, did you provide this so that the town might provide comment in the situation, or obviously just to inform council? Ms.
Mr.
Weens.
Mayor, through you, this was a notice that the town received by the consultants doing the EA. They were obligated to provide notice of the commencement of the study to the town. So this, I believe, was received by the clerk's office. Myself and the Director of Public Works also received this, as well as other agencies like the region and the Conservation Authority. And probably property owners in the vicinity would have received the notice.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Durley, anything further?
No, that's it. Thanks. That clears it up.
Thank you. Anything further on that particular item from members of council? Okay, thank you. I do note a retired member of the town staff that probably worked on this when this was here several years ago, Kunda Park. So Let's turn to Councillor Ribbiak for another item. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is with regard to, let me just move this thing over here, 931 historical staffing complement. And my question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director is with regard to just technically I guess, around nomenclature of various classes of employees. I read from key fact, the majority of temporary staff is hired for the summer season, May to September. However, a small percentage are hired in other seasons or maintained year-round. So when an employee is maintained year-round, is that really temporary? Are we really talking more of a permanent part-time, or are there some technical reasons why we call them temporary and not permanent when in fact they seem to be?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Gilbert?
And you're right, my wording probably is a little bit sloppy there, but when I say maintain year-round, this is where I think about our crossing guard staff, is that they are maintained, so they're not here for the 2 months of the summer, but we typically just bring them back come the fall. So they are maintained year-round. We don't go back out to hire unless somebody decides not to return. So we maintain them year-round. They're just not with us for the entire year. So there's usually a break in their employment, and significant enough that we issue them an ROE and bring them back in the fall.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. No apology required. It's my understanding. I should have recalled that, in fact, we may be talking about crossing guards, and there is, in fact, a break, so they are not on permanent staff. And I accept the answer, and I like it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else to that particular item? I know this was chatted about earlier. Councillor Papp?
Well, just quickly through you to the director and the CEO, thank you for bringing this public, bringing the information out. It answers a lot of questions that we sometimes encounter with what the staffing and organizational level is and how we operate. So it does clear the air up, and it also helps us in determining as our future staffing resources are required over the next number of years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I think you were the one that sort of initiated this, saying, let's get this information.
Let's get this out
to the public. So
Right.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
that. Anyone else to that particular report? Okay, thank you. What about other reports in the consent agenda? Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Article 943, the noise variance. I understand it's important to celebrate a wedding, and the timing is nothing later than 1 o'clock. Is there a upper limit to the volume of this music? And I wonder if the neighbors have been notified, and will the neighbors be notified to expect that this is going to happen? And what if there appears to be maybe too loud, or somebody's offended by it? What is the repercussion, or what are the consequences, or how can we deal with these situations?
Thank you. I'm just wondering whether this, let's get the clerk to start, because I think this was initiated as part of the wedding ceremony and that piece, and then we'll get the chief to fill in any pieces that haven't answered.
The report mentions correspondence, and we don't see the correspondence, so maybe that has the questions answered, so.
I'm sorry, the correspondence should have been listed. My apologies, Mr. Mayor. The request is for a small family wedding. The neighbors have been notified, and we have been advised that the speakers will be pointing inward toward the property, and it is a small wedding ceremony. So, but the bylaw itself does address noise in general. It doesn't restrict it anymore. I don't know if council recalls there was a change to the noise bylaw. Perhaps the chief would recall if there's a certain decibel that is the noise tolerance.
Hey, Mr. Mayor.
Are you going to crash this wedding and find out if they're too loud?
Yeah, when we rewrote the bylaw, we elected not to go to the decibel thing because we would have to buy equipment that would have been calibrated and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of different things tied to it. So the language speaks more or less not to disturb, in so many words, not to disturb your neighbors. So I can't remember the exact wording in the bylaw, but it's we didn't want to put a number to it.
Okay, thank you. Does that satisfy you, Councillor, or you still have further questions?
What I'm saying is, what if somebody is offended by it, and if they think it's a little bit too loud, and then they do call in a complaint or something? What will be done, or what can be done?
Taking the date and time into consideration, we wouldn't have staff on call or working, so it would be a police call, be an NRP matter. They would probably show up, investigate it, they'd be presented with a variance from council giving them permission. And most cases, it's probably just a, respect your neighbor type thing, but nothing can really be done.
Okay. I'm quite certain there won't be any problems, but I'm just anticipating what if there is something, and that's why I'm asking these questions. Your answer is satisfied. It is a holiday weekend, so the only people working likely to call on things like this would be the police. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Anyone else on this particular matter? Anything else under consent agenda? All right, so looks like we're ready to call the question on those items, save and accept the 932, which is separate consideration. So I will call the question on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Now let's deal with 932. The councillor has left the room because he declared a conflict. So it's been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the council receive this report regarding the minor variance appeals of applications A8 2017P and A16 2017P, and that council retain legal counsel in support of the Committee of Adjustment decisions regarding the applications, and the council regarding the decision on the application A8 2017P, and the council retain legal counsel in support of the Committee of Adjustment decision on application A16 2017P. Questions or comments regarding the recommendation, the report? There being none? Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. We can ask the councillor to return. Thank you. Now we move to staff reports requiring action. Thank you, councillor. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved, the council receive the Public Works Report, Regional Water Wastewater Master Plan, Fenwick Supply for information, and the council request the region of Niagara to reconsider capital projects to increase the Fenwick drinking water supply security and incorporate these projects into the Water Wastewater Master Servicing Plan. Did we add that? There was an addendum, Madam Clerk. Did we add that into the agenda?
Yes, it was included on the agenda and released to the public.
Okay, thank you. So this also includes the addendum 11211. Questions or comments regarding the recommendation? Councillor Papp?
No, just a comment that water safety is upmost in our minds, and anything that we do to continue to push forward on that is vital.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you very much for the director for putting the report together. This was really received at the region last week, and I did ask questions there about the omission of this particular item in the report. It had been talked about as the director's report indicates. We'd always received indication, yes, we understand, we know it's important to you, either a second line or an elevated tank, etc., that would have this security of supply. And it wasn't there, and I was asking questions. The addendum report that was attached says essentially what staff indicated at the region, which is they thought it wasn't needed. So it's important for to hear from the director on this particular issue, and the director's suggesting that we do incorporate this or ask the region to incorporate this in. So if approved here today, the reason why it's a council, not a committee, it's something that we can forward to regional council, and perhaps they can consider it on Thursday. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Powell?
So if this is approved and it goes to regional council, then it'll be incorporated as part of their capital considerations for 2018?
It'll be considered.
It'll be considered.
It'll be considered in the wastewater master plan. So this is a plan they've been working on.
Right.
It's exactly the same plan. It's a wastewater plan that I was talking with Councillor Beatty and Councillor Junkin with earlier. On the water side, they continue to give us these assurances that this would be incorporated.
Okay.
And now it's not in the final plan. So this resolution of council will allow perhaps regional council to consider adding it to the plan. Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I do have a question to the director. Just for clarity, I noticed in the addendum that one of the reasons that they turned down the second main, they spoke about the safety of the water supply and the extensive amount of costs that will need to be put forward to maintain the safety of the supply, the logic of which I didn't quite understand. So I wonder if you could comment on that.
Madam Director, please.
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. In the addendum that they issued us, they essentially have examined the options of a twinned main, a second supply, or storage in Fenwick to buy us a few days should some catastrophic failure happen. And what they found is that the demand, even with projected growth, the demand in Fenwick isn't enough to regularly consume enough water through that twinned main, which brings about new risk, which is the water quality. So that's why there was special attention to some of the pages about residence rate or the length of time water sits in pipe. They feel that the additional risk that would be introduced from having just that additional capacity in the water main outweighs the risk of the security. What I don't know is, if it has been considered, is to loop it so that it's no longer an end.
Right.
It's
Comes
to
around.
actually send it back to
Constantly.
Font Hill. Yes. I just don't know if that has been discussed. There wasn't much more than what we have there. So we at least want to see it back on the table to consider. And yes, there are other opportunities to ensure that the quality is maintained even with that storage. It's a little more complicated and requires more controls, but it's not necessarily off the table immediately. So we just didn't want to see it die.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for the clarity.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Are you ready for me calling the question? I will do so. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. And I'm going to say unanimously as well so that we can tell the region that as well on Thursday. Thank you. And I would ask the clerk if she might be able to forward that to the region quickly so they may consider it on their agenda. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Junkin. Be it resolved, the Council received the Department of Community Planning and Development report for information as it pertains to giving notice to designate 1 Highway 20 West under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and Council not give notice to designate 1 Highway 20 West, and that Council not place the property on a register as a listed property. Discussion regarding this item? Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's always difficult to deal with a heritage property, and I do believe this building is in fact one of the oldest buildings in downtown Font Hill, if not indeed the oldest. But when one looks at the structural reports and weighs that against the practicality of, actually trying to restore the building to some semblance of its former self and such that it would be worth designating, you have to be practical when you look at these things. So it's with some reluctance that I support this, but I do support it. I believe that's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Others? Councillor Ribiak? Councillor Durley? Councillor
Thank
Ribiak.
you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing further to add to Councillor Kersey's sentiments. I felt that this was a really well-written report and justifies completely the recommendation that was made. I'll support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The pictures that are attached here tell the whole story. If you look at the original building and compare it to what's there today, the resemblance is very slim. And I think that, in fact, is many of the heritage features of the original building have been demolished, actually, and the condition of it, as reported in the in the report. Cost would be prohibitive to bring it up to a standard, so I'm going to support this as well. I like the detail that the report brings, and especially the photos, which certainly is the icing on the cake. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others? I want to add something, and I wholeheartedly agree with council colleagues both on the completeness of the report and supporting the recommendation. But there have been calls when we've dealt with other issues regarding heritage in our community for perhaps the idea of some sort of heritage fund that might be available for property owners that they could use, similar to the CIP fund, to redo properties. But I think in this case, and in another case that we dealt with most recently on Regional Road 20, the costs would just be so prohibitive. And I think when this council has talked in generality, granted, about a heritage fund, it would be, you know, a few $1,000s or as opposed to hundreds of thousands or more. So I do think that is something that council may want to consider in the budget for next year, some sort of allocation to assist properties, because heritage properties are extremely important, and assist those property owners. But in this case, it appears to me, this is my opinion, that it would take a considerable amount of funding to, as you've stated, Councillor Kersey, to bring this back to the nature in which you would want to preserve it and get it back to that heritage feature, that it would just be cost prohibitive, and there wouldn't be enough in that fund to do that. So I wanted to add that, and I do want colleagues to think about that as we think about our budget deliberations for 2018. Unless there's anything further, I'm going to call a question. Councillor Papp, I'm sorry.
Very quickly, maybe I won't be able to word this properly. I support the recommendation, but I also wanted to somehow acknowledge in principle and generally the historic significance of this particular property and the development and evolution of at that point, the village of Fonthill City, that it has been a hallmark for people coming into town. So I don't know if that's appropriate, but I don't want to conflict it with the heritage, but just the fact that this, if you look back, I was given a videotape by Thelma, which they documented everything that took place downtown. So it's maybe at some other appropriate time before, demolition occurs. I can think of times where we acknowledge how important they've been as part of the community.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if we want to, Councillor Gurley, you want to add on that, build on that?
Just to that, and actually building on that, it seems peculiar to me that buildings aren't really up for heritage designation or recognition until such time as this for sale sign goes up. You know, it's coincidental or what, this puzzles me, and it's happened in more than one occasion. All of a sudden, the for sale sign goes up and people get interested and say it should be heritage. And this is something else I think that we need, you know, to give some consideration. And perhaps when the Heritage Committee is brought back, resurrected, perhaps part of their terms of reference could be to deal with issues that are like this, because I think there's some underlying issues out there that I think are very important to tackle before we really get into serious heritage discussions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Ms. Weens, Councillor Papp has indicated if there's some way of marking the heritage on this. I don't know if you have any comments to that.
Mr. Mayor, through you, certainly the site is a very prominent site. It is, you know, at the main intersection in downtown Fonthill. The use as an inn in the mid-1800s is, you know, made it a prominent building and a prominent use and activity out there. There was a band shell at one point in time out front as well. So it was certainly an area that was very active and did have a lot of prominence around it. Certainly we have, you know, prepared a character statement that can form part of the record. moving forward with the potential purchaser on this property. There is an interest to certainly do something that is appropriate for this site. He does want to rebuild on the site. He does want to have it as a mixed-use commercial building and similar in scale to what is there today, but you just can't work with what you have there, unfortunately.
That's right.
There is virtually nothing original left, and what is original is so rotten and decayed, and the structure is so severely compromised as a result of that. It's really unfortunate. So yes, I think going forward, we would certainly attempt to work with the property owner in terms of being able to either commemorate that site or interpret that corner in some form or fashion. And, you know, it could be something that we'll have to think about how that happens, but, you know, I don't think the door is closed on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Even looking at the two photos that are here on the sheet between the what was and what is, it's hard to reconcile what was to what is currently there, even from the outside. But I wonder if perhaps I know we have design guidelines in the downtown, et cetera, but perhaps some of the design features of how it looked before could be incorporated. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but could somehow be incorporated into the new structure, especially if they're considering the same size and form.
Certainly, we've had some preliminary discussions with the potential purchaser about that, and when he saw the image of the original building, he did like, you know, that kind of look. But we'll see what they, you know, what comes up. It all has to relate to the functionality of the building as well. So we will be working with them. We did feel it was important, however, to inform council of this because we are aware that there will likely be a demolition permit, and so we wanted to come out in front of it as opposed to behind it. And so staff did certainly visit the building and tour the building to see firsthand what the condition of that building was, and we did request that there be some type of engineer's report submitted as well to give us information with respect to structural integrity of the building. And it's unfortunate it is in the condition that it's in, but it is a very old wood building, and unless they're properly maintained, they do rot.
Thank you very much. Anything further from members of council? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the council received the report entitled Station Street Reconstruction Red Circled Budget Update, and the council approved the release of $165,070 of the red circled RD 0917 budget required to design the reconstruction of Station Street, Highway 20 to Port Robinson Road, and to cover extras related to ensuring the roundabout aligns with future Station Street designs. Questions or comments? There's that red circling as we state. Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at that diagram, is there enough land available now to put this roundabout in, or are we going to need to acquire some more land? It looks like the scale of that looks bigger than what I see on the ground as I look, and I'm not an engineer, so I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question.
Mr. Mathieu?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as of last week, we cut that in half. So yes, we have all the land we need. It's nice and small. We had a major design shift last week, so yes, we have the room.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, the roundabout will be suitable for smart cars then?
Mayor, yes, it'll still be suitable for large truck traffic. It's just a different design without the center landscape feature.
Okay.
It's called a mini roundabout, but we would still be able to, our thinking has been about being able to accommodate a beer store truck making a delivery from Rice Road or from Highway 20 if needed. So we've been working backwards, garbage trucks, fire trucks, and transport trucks.
Of course, all these people will, the fire department and that will have comments to make sure that everything's okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, of course, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a joke in there somewhere about a beer truck, but I won't say it. Others, Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. First a comment and then a question. I fully understand and support the expenditure of $40,000 to make sure the design is in alignment with the balance of Station Street. It seems nonsensical to put a roundabout together and then try and fit the street to the roundabout as opposed to designing the whole thing. So I would support the 40,000 without question. I question the 125,070 only because it does not appear to be planned to be expended until the spring of early spring of 2018, and why that couldn't be rolled over into a request from the 2018 budget.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the project for the roundabout is currently awarded. It's an awarded contract to Beam as part of the Summersides project. So this is an extension or one piece of that project. So they are actually going ahead with the first phase of that construction on Summersides now. The roundabout itself is delayed, but we needed to have secure understanding of how that storm in the roundabout would be paid for, whether it would be an extra in the Summersides contract or paid for through the Station Street contract. Because the storm is really to support Station Street stormwater, and we don't know when that Station Street project is going forward, and because we're trying to align the construction happening along the street, and because it's an awarded contract, we felt it was fair that we give them the security that the extra is awarded so that they can continue right to the eastern extent of that intersection, knowing what plans are in place for the roundabout for the spring.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a follow-up through you, so the roundabout was included with the exception of the stormwater in the Summerside extension from Wellspring through to Station. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct. So, okay, I guess the next question would be then directed to our Director of Corporate Services, and maybe it's an unfair question, but where are we going to find the $125,070 since that was red circled and not allocated? Is it going to come out of reserve funds, or how are we going to pay for it?
I don't know if the director is able to answer that, or the
No,
CAO.
I was
My
kind of
understanding
about
was that it was still in the budget, just red circled. Mr. CAO?
That's correct. The money that was allocated for that project in its entirety is budgeted as part of that budget. It's just the red circle implies that we can't spend it until we have secondary approval from council for whatever the reasons were when we went through the budget exercise. So in this case, it was obvious that the way the project was unfolding, but this money is contained in the budget. We're just asking permission to be able to use it. So it's not coming from reserves. It doesn't have to be found. It's already there.
In essence, it's in the roads reserve, and we said, go ahead and approve it, but red circle it. So it's in the reserve already. That's how I'm reading what the CAO is saying.
If I may, I think we were given very strong assurances that unless there were secondary financing brought to bear in the form of a grant, that Station Street would not proceed. So it's true. That was my understanding. So I think we have a sort of a conflict of term, and we often get into this with these red circle items where we're sort of given one assurance that it's not going to be spent, and on the other hand, and red circle it unless we get grants, and then we don't get grants and we still want to spend the money. So that's why I'm trying to clarify. If we've got the money sitting there, then I guess fine. Otherwise, I say push it to 18. So I guess that's all I'm trying to clarify.
All right, thank you. Mr. Seo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That statement is quite correct. That was, again, the reason that council said, red circle that until we find out the status of the grant. We know now that we didn't get the grant. However, that money that the town had allocated is still in that budget, that in order for us to proceed with the work to get Summersides done and get the roundabout done, we need a portion of that. So that's what we're really asking for, is that we didn't get the grant, but we can do some work, and in order to do that work, we do need a piece of this budget to facilitate that, and that's basically what the director's asking for.
Thank you. Councillor Drilling?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to build on that, so what I'm hearing is this expenditure is not part of Station Street redevelopment, it's the continuation of Summersides Drive. Am I understanding that correctly?
Who wants to answer that? Ms. Clemencio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's a bit of a strange one. It's the intersection of Station and Summersides. It's necessary underground infrastructure that was missed in the Summersides design, simply because the Station Street design wasn't done. So now in our foresight, knowing that we've got Station Street in our future plans, it would be smart to do the underground infrastructure in that intersection now, rather than when we're ready to do Station Street, tearing up that intersection again to lay down the underground infrastructure that's needed.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, it's critical to the connection between Summersides and Town Square.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's actually critical for Station Street storm running from south to north. It's the storm water flowing through
Okay.
the intersection.
Okay.
Thank you. Others? If we approve this, Ms. Clemencio, does this mean that the connection can occur this year? Or, sorry, that Summersides, at least a portion of it can be linked up to Station, and then there might be other works next year. But what I'm hearing from folks is they do want to use that connection, because Highway 20, part of Rice Road is sort of the only way in now, and they do want to have that connection. So can we hear about the timing for Summersides?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we haven't talked about it, I haven't discussed it yet with the CAO. The plan as of now was to keep that closed at that intersection. We'd have a water main and a sewer connection there. They can be kept out of the travel path. But if you wanted to consider opening it for travel and keeping it as a four-way stop perhaps, or a two-way, we could consider that. At this point, it was to remain closed until the intersection was complete in the spring, but honestly, we haven't discussed it yet, what that timing could be.
I think, well, we can hear from colleagues, but my understanding, my preference for the reason why we keep saying that Summersides needs to be done and done early is to connect the development to ease traffic on Regional Road 20 and the entire idea that, you know, you get into this development only through 20. This would allow that to be open. And council kind of said a few years ago, and perhaps it predates you being here, Madam Director, but said a few years ago, let's get that connection in as quickly as possible so that people can link up with the development as soon as possible. Also, it may also open up other development in the area that isn't currently foreseen or isn't able to move ahead as quickly. It may encourage that and accelerate that development. So perhaps staff can consider that as a possibility of opening up that roadway if it's possible this year, if it's doable. Maybe you can come back to us with whether that's possible or not. Is it safe? Is it doable, et cetera? But I would think that this council had, for example, by approving Summersides Station to Wellspring last year, in last year's budget, 2016 budget, essentially saying, you know, we wanted to get this done as quickly as possible as well. So if you can maybe come back to us with that as a possibility in the future, that'd be helpful, I think. I don't know if colleagues have anything to say on that. Mr. CAO, you want to say something, and then we'll open it up?
Just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, you're speaking about the roundabout, not about Summerside's Drive, because Summerside's Drive is still proceeding. So
No, what
I
I'm-
just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying.
What I'm saying is if the roadway is going to be done, which is what I understand in the report, it's going to be connected, it's just going to be barricaded. But the director's saying that we can put a four-way stop there.
Oh, I see, okay, I got it, okay.
Until the design and everything, I think it would be important, even with a four-way stop, to have that connection as much as possible. Those are my thoughts. We hear from colleagues. We got, getting people into that. If it's safe for the rest of it too, it's got to all kind of, will this work? And maybe the director isn't able to answer that right now,
Probably
but.
not, but could we come back?
Yeah, if I think colleagues agree with me, if we can hear about that. I am hearing a lot of people saying, I have to use Highway 20 to get into this new development. Is there a way that I can get in there in the back way and don't have to use Highway 20? Councillor Kersey or Pap, I think.
Well, yeah, just a comment. More than that, Mr. Mayor, I think it's really important that we send a message to the downtown business community that we are providing a link as quickly as possible from that development to the downtown core. That was one thing that we did promise to them. And as that subdivision develops and people move in there and will be seeking services, we want to get them directed to the downtown core to support those businesses down there. So I think very, very important that we do that with or without the roundabout.
The roundabout, right. Councillor Pap?
No, Councillor Kersey's hit that.
Okay. So perhaps as direction, if that's something that staff can come back to us with a way in which to achieve that and the connection as soon as possible. And then the roundabout, as I think the report states, it'll be done next spring.
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Kersey?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, one further question with respect to the 125-070. Just for clarity, so this 125-070 will be taken from the 2452, 2,452,000, and will not be charged as an extra to that 2,452,000.
Madam Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the 2452, sorry, my computer died, that's the Station Street Circle?
Reconstruction project, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that would be correct. It would be offset. There wouldn't be, that cost wouldn't be doubled up when the project comes back. Yeah.
So the 2452 is in the budget. It was all red circled. This is releasing some of those funds, but taking it out of that, reducing the amount by that amount. That's what you're asking.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify
Okay,
that
perfect.
in fact reduces that and doesn't become an extra to that.
Yep. Yes, it's not an additional, it's incorporated in it.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything further? All right, we look forward to that further information coming forward. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. We did move an item, so now we are on bylaws, I believe. So it has been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Junkin. Be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read it first, second, third time, and do pass the same. The mayor clerk be and hereby authorized to sign and seal the following bylaw, bylaw 3891, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 3604, appointing various building inspectors, bylaw enforcement officers, and property standards officers for the corporation of the Town of Pelham. Such amendment being change the name Belinda Phillips to Belinda Menard. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. And now our confirming bylaw. It's been moved by Councillor Junkin, second by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved, the following bylaw be read a first, second, third time and passed. Bylaw 3892 to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 5th day of June 2017. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, this regular meeting of Council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for June 19th, 2017. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Let's take a brief break between